Bam Adebayo made history against the Washington Wizards in the Miami Heat victory, in which they defeated the Wizards 150 to 129. In this game, Adebayo scored 83 points, which gave him the second highest scoring game in NBA history. In this game, he passed Kobe Bryant's 81 points to put him in number 2 all time, right behind Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt, for those of you who don't know, has the all-time record of 100 points scored in one game. And I know some people have been saying this for years, that record will never be broken, but I feel in this scoring inflated era, there's a high chance we're going to see that record get broken one of these days. I'm just calling it the next 10 years. I just see some guy breaking it. It could be Victor Wembanyama, or just some, some perimeter player such as Anthony Edwards gets really hot one night and gets a ton of free throws, hits a ton of threes. And I could just see it going down, or maybe even SGA possibly. Granted, I think it'll be harder since he plays on a championship team, but you never know. I just think the way these rules favor guys today, it's definitely possible. But I'm going to mention the positives first about this game. I've always thought Kobe's 81 points was overrated. It was against the Raptors in a game that the Lakers won by like nearly 20 points. Kobe got a lot of those points padded towards the end of the game. And I just enjoyed how Bam was able to break that. And Bam was guilty of doing the same thing, for being honest. The Wizards are a crappy team. They have a chance at getting the number one pick. Their record is just that bad. But I had no problems with him stat padding, because Kobe stat padded when he got the 81-point game. And people revere that game like it's like Michael Jordan's 63-point game against the Celtics, when I always felt that game was really meaningless because it was done against a crappy team, and it was just stat padding. So good on Bam for being able to break that record, and good on Spoelstra for allowing Bam to break that record, because as a coach, he could have taken him out of the game earlier, but he allowed him to continue to play so he could have that moment and get the record. Because I think even Spo knows, granted, Miami's having a decent season, they're not going to contend for a title. This is going to be the highlight of their season, something they can look back on. So I think Spo recognized the moment and said, like, hey, I'm going to let my guy have this so he can just cherish it forever, and so forth. The funny thing about it now, Bam, I know it's not right, and there's not too much legitimacy when I say this, but I say it jokingly, but you can now make the argument that Bam is the greatest center in Miami Heat history, simply because he got the 83 points. That's higher than Shaquille O'Neal ever got in a game. That's higher than Alonzo Mourning. And it's crazy to think that Bam has scored more points in the game than Hakeem Olajuwon ever did, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar ever did, Shaquille O'Neal ever did, Dave Robinson ever did, Tim Duncan ever did. Just, it's crazy thinking about it, that he scored more points than those legendary big men. I know some youngins will say, like, well, this proves this era is so much superior, that Bam is dominating. He would have made those guys look like plumbers back in the day. But I decided to point it out that this Bam getting 83, I'm not going to belittle him. I think he's a good player. He's been a 3-time All-Star in this league. He's been 5-time All-NBA defensive player. He made All-NBA defensive team once, and he's made All-NBA second defensive team 4 times. So you got to respect it. If he continues to produce at the numbers he's putting up, I think he will get into the Hall of Fame after his career's over. I think he'll get a few more All-Star appearances, and he'll get some more defensive team appearances, and that should get him in the Hall of Fame. So I will give him that, but I don't think he's anywhere on the level of those guys I've listed. I think if he came out in the earlier eras, like the 2000s or the 90s, I think he would be a second tier to third tier big man in those previous leagues. So that shows you how inflated the game is today, but it really shows you how inflated scoring is today, because you look at even this game where Bam got 83 points. he shot only 20 of 43 from the field. And that's 46%, which is an okay percentage. It's decent, but not great for a big man. For a big man, I would always say 50% or higher is what I call great. So that's that's a ding I would put against him. And then he shot 7 of 22 from three. Think about it, he took 22 3-pointers. That's insane. And he shot 31%, which is a bad percentage for a 3-point shooting. Now, what really gave him the advantage of getting the 83 points was him shooting 36 of 43 from the free throw line, which I will respect. That's a shitload of free throws he had to make. And he did at a high percentage of 83%. But that shows you how crazy this game has gotten, that he didn't really have an efficient shooting night outside of the free throws. And he was still able to get 83 points because just the pace of this game is played at is just so much different than back in the day, if you think about it. He got it in the game without going to overtime. So that shows you just how insane it is and how defense is really broken in the NBA. Granted, you could say the Washington Wizards are a terrible team, but to me, this is just another example of how these defensive rules suck today. You can't really guard anybody really effectively, and this paves the way for guys to have these high scoring nights where, to me, like I'm not in awe of these high scoring games anymore like I was back in the day. Even when I was like in my 20s as an adult, it still kind of impressed me when guys would get 50 or more. But today, it's just like it's like a normal thing. I think someone did some research about a year ago, and they showed that how in the last 5 years, the NBA has had the most 50-point games ever that compared to any other era. 50 points or higher for players scoring, and that has a lot to do with the new rules, just the way fouls are called, and how guys can easily get a ton of free throws, and how defenses are pretty much restricted to how much they can really guard you. So you have so much room and mobility to get easy buckets. The only thing I feel, I guess not feel, or I would say I hope, is that maybe this game can sway some people. Like, hey, it's time to change some of these rules when a guy like Bam get 83. Like, to me, he's a good player, but not great enough where I would say he's better than those several big men I've listed, like Elijah Wan, Shaq, Duncan, Jabbar, David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, heck, even Alonzo Mourning. I would say I would still take prime Alonzo Mourning over Bam Adebayo, but he has that on them now. He scored 83 points in the game, and it just shows you how insane this era truly is. So I'll say this, and my final thought on this is that, hey, at least the positive that came out of this was he broke Kobe's record. I really hate Kobe's fans and how they never shut up about the 81-point game. And at least that's gone, and we won't hear about that anymore now with Bam sending that record to the dustbins of history. That record is now meaningless with Bam being number 2 on the all-time scoring list. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.